Have you ever noticed this? The first people to oppose your future are rarely strangers. They're usually the ones who know your name, the ones who heard your dream. And here's the part we don't talk about enough. God saw the betrayal coming, and he didn't stop it. That single truth confuses a lot of people. Because if God really gave the dream, why would the journey begin with rejection? Why would destiny start with loss instead of momentum? Why would obedience lead to a pit instead of progress? That question, why God often allows betrayal at the beginning of destiny, is what we're unpacking today. And if you stay with me, you might finally understand a season in your own life that never made sense. Now, when most of us receive a dream from God, we expect confirmation, support, acceleration. But Scripture shows us something very different. Destiny almost never starts with applause. It usually starts with resistance. Joseph didn't walk into purpose surrounded by celebration. He walked into it surrounded by jealousy. Before the palace, there was a pit. Before leadership, there was rejection. Before honor, betrayal by his own brothers. And here's the part that changes everything. The betrayal didn't delay the dream. It activated it. If Joseph stayed home protected, favored, untouched, he never ends up in Egypt. And if he never reaches Egypt, the dream God showed him dies where it began. So God didn't create the hatred, but he allowed it to move Joseph where comfort never would. This is where many people misread the story. We assume betrayal means God has stepped away. But often, betrayal is proof that movement has begun. When seasons shift, relationships strain. When destiny awakens, comfort zones collapse. When God starts repositioning you, resistance appears first. That's not punishment. That's pressure. Here's a difficult truth but an honest one. Not everyone assigned to your beginning is meant for your destination. Some people are only meant to introduce the journey, not finish it. And betrayal becomes the painful mechanism of separation. Now you might ask, why does it have to hurt so much? Why not a clean transition? Because comfortable people rarely move willingly. Joseph had no reason to leave home. So the pressure had to increase until movement became unavoidable. Sometimes God allows what wounds you, because what's familiar is quietly holding you hostage. Notice what Joseph lost: relationships, reputation, security, control. Betrayal stripped him of everything, except what God put inside him. And that's the test. If the dream survives betrayal, it's real. If your faith survives misunderstanding, it's rooted. If your calling survives rejection, it's God-breathed. Here's a question worth sitting with. What if the betrayal wasn't meant to destroy you, but to expose what couldn't be taken from you? Joseph didn't stop being a dreamer in the pit. He didn't lose favor in slavery. He didn't lose purpose when he was forgotten. The environment changed. The assignment didn't. And this is where this story meets yours. If you're in a season where trusted people turned distant, where support disappeared without explanation, where your intentions were questioned, that doesn't automatically mean you were wrong. It may mean you're transitioning. Betrayal has a way of forcing doors open that comfort keeps shut. Joseph never applied for Egypt. He was sent. Unfairly. But Egypt was where his gift would mature, where his leadership would be refined, where the dream would finally make sense. And here's the detail most people miss. The same brothers who betrayed him would one day need him. What felt like rejection was actually preparation for everyone involved. Hold on to that. If God showed you something about your future, and the first response was resistance instead of celebration, you are not abandoned. You are not late. And you are not off track. Destiny often arrives quietly, but betrayal announces that movement has begun. This doesn't excuse what people did. Pain is still pain. Betrayal is still betrayal. But it does mean you stop interpreting hurt as God's absence. God doesn't always remove the pit. Sometimes He uses it to remove illusions about people, about control, about how the story was supposed to unfold. So here's the thought I want to leave looping in your mind. What if the people who hurt you first were never meant to walk with you long term? What if their role wasn't companionship but propulsion? Because Joseph didn't rise in spite of betrayal. He rose through it. And if you're asking why it had to start this way, why the loss came so early, why the dream cost you relationships, maybe the better question is this: what is God positioning you for next? Because the pit is never the end of the story. It's the place where movement begins. And if this connected with you, you'll want to stay for what comes next.